This is CBC Here and Now.
I called my mom and dad in the morning to saying that do not go out of the house.
Watching India's devastating COVID-19 battle from here at home as the country runs out of medical supplies and hospitals are overrun.
Families tell us about the challenge of watching from afar.
A couple of unsettled days on the way, but the temperatures are on the rise.
Well, no, this is not PEI, but Junction Brook, just outside of Deer Lake, where there are 700 acres of cleared land ready for a massive potato production.
The property that we applied for is about 172 acres.
We're looking at as much as 120 tractor-trailer loads of potatoes.
I'll tell you all about it. That's tonight on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We start tonight with more cases of COVID-19 and details of the variants of concern in this province. The Chief Medical Officer of Health warned that all options are under consideration as the province decides how to make sure spikes of COVID-19 in places like Ontario and Nova Scotia don't happen here. Let's bring in Peter Cowan. So, Peter, exactly how many cases of the variants have we seen in this province?
Well, Carolyn, when they've announced new cases like the 4 new travel-related cases today, the odds are that they're one of the variants of concern. We got a breakdown today of some of the numbers, so let's show you. In total, 83% of the cases that were announced this month have been one of the variants of concern. So let's take a look at the exact numbers. 9 of those cases were the B117. This is the variant first found in the UK, and that was the culprit behind the outbreak in February, focused around Mount Pearl. There were 5 cases of B1351, that's the South African variant, 1 case of P1, which is originally from Brazil, and 1 case of the B1617 variant. That's the one from India that we've seen a lot of talk about recently. This is all of these are the reasons that the Chief Medical Officer of Health isn't lifting restrictions anytime soon.
I know that it may be difficult to understand why we need to tread so carefully when we have so few COVID cases ourselves, but we are one of the few jurisdictions in Canada that is not experiencing community spread at this time. This virus is at our doorstep, however, waiting to be let in, and we have to do all we can not to let that happen. Importation is our biggest risk right now. We have layers of protection in place for travelers, including stringent self-isolation requirements as well as enhanced testing. But with COVID, there are never any guarantees.
Now, other Atlantic provinces have gone further than Newfoundland and Labrador. For example, in PEI, everyone who comes in and isolates gets tested 3 times. In New Brunswick, most people arriving have to spend a week at a hotel and pay for it themselves. Both of those are options Newfoundland and Labrador is considering.
We're looking at everything right now and just trying to find or trying to decide which one will work best for us. But so when we have more information on that, we certainly will let you know. But, everything is under consideration at this point.
There is still a lot of testing capacity. The Premier said today he's offered to run tests for Nova Scotia, which is dealing with a surge in cases and has maxed out its testing capacity there. Anthony?
Thank you, Peter. Peter Cowan, live in our newsroom. Well, with hundreds of thousands of new cases each day and a shortage of supplies as well as overrun hospitals, the COVID crisis is a catastrophe in India. While a St. John's woman isolates in her apartment in Mumbai, the province's Indian community is keeping a close watch, worried for family and friends back home. Here now is Heather Gillis with that story.
It's really devastating to see what's going on.
Leanna Singh, originally from St. John's, moved to India 8 years ago after falling in love with the country on holiday. The COVID-19 pandemic is ravaging India. Today alone, more than 360,000 new known cases, with 18 million in total, and more than 200,000 deaths. There's a shortage of medical supplies and oxygen, and hospitals are being swamped by the sick.
I mean, every time you open up social media, every time you read the news, you cannot comprehend the amount of people that are passing away right now in this country.
Singh hasn't left her apartment in 3 weeks. In densely populated Mumbai, even going for a walk is too dangerous.
I mean, being locked away for weeks and weeks at a time obviously is having a toll. Oceans
away in St. John's, Minnie Nair is doing her part to spread some joy in the local Indian community, with signs of encouragement celebrating birthdays and anniversaries. She's also been picking up and dropping off groceries for seniors, all the while worrying about her parents in Kerala, in southern India. She hasn't seen them in years and has had to cancel a number of trips home.
And it's sad that I can't see my parents, my siblings. It's really sad. It's sad for them too. They can't see me. And my mom always says, we don't know if we'll die before we see you. So it's hard for them. It's really hard for them, yeah. And it's hard for us too. Yeah, my mother-in-law passed away last year, and it was hard for my husband to reach there.
Keeping a watchful eye on her parents, Nair and her siblings have installed cameras in the family home in India, which offers some comfort. She calls a lot and begs them to stay inside, but her 81-year-old dad is getting frustrated, and she's dreaming of the day they can all be together again.
So it's up to us to stay home, wear the mask, and defeat this virus all over the world so that at least we can see our loved ones.
Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Now, I spoke with a local St. John's doctor who has lost family members in India to COVID-19, and she fears the crisis in the country of her birth is more serious than the government there admits. That interview later on Here and Now.
Well, it's been an unsettled couple of days thanks to an area of low pressure bringing some showers, some graupel through parts of central, and then some flurries up across Labrador as well, even some rain showers for you in the southeast. We did see some few peaks of sun this afternoon for eastern areas of the island. That allowed the temperature to jump up to the double digits. Bonavista 11 degrees, 10 in St. John's, 11 for Corner Brook as well, staying a little cooler along the south coast, reaching the double digits along the strait. And then we've got those temperatures into the single digits for the rest of the Big Land. Winds today not too bad, anywhere from 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. But the good news is that as we head through the night tonight and into the first half of tomorrow, those winds will die down. We're going to see a little bit of sunshine, but also going to see some rain and some flurries or graupel in the mix for tomorrow. I'll get into those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, there's an unexpected delay in the sentencing of a salmon lodge in Labrador. The case was in court in Wabush today, but an agreed statement of facts wasn't signed by all parties, so the judge has delayed proceedings until Friday. There were also problems with the phone line in Port Hope Simpson. The company that owns Cloud9 Salmon Lodge pleaded guilty to health and safety charges after one of its guides, Cartwright resident Raymond Green, drowned in 2018. Green's partner of 31 years is expected to read a victim impact statement when court resumes Friday morning.
A lot more potatoes are about to crop up on the west coast. East of Deer Lake, 700 acres of Crown land is being leased to commercial farmers with a promise of doubling the province's self-sufficiency. Here Now's Colleen Connors met some of the farmers involved in this project.
Rich red soil for kilometers.
When we get these fields in operation and we can get harvest, we're looking at as much as 120 tractor-trailer loads of potatoes.
All on this recently cleared Crown land that has been leased to several provincial companies, including these two, and their young families.
The property that we applied for is about 172 acres, and of which 100 is cleared already, and that's where we plan on planting.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
All with the hope of keeping it in the family.
It is definitely a commercial venture. That's where our plan was from the start, and no doubt we'll get our families and these young kids involved in the near future.
It looks like we're probably going to triple or quadruple in the next couple of years.
The experienced M&M Farming Company have been producing and selling potato products in the province for some time now. More locally grown potato means less out-of-province imports.
But also it boosts the economy in regards to food sustainability and security. And we think that we're going to make a huge dent into this, I guess, the food coming into the province right now.
So for us, we're going to go from about 10% to 20% of our food sustainability for the province. And potato has been a staple for the Newfoundlanders for years and years and years. So for us to get into the potato, and as you can see by these fields, there's a great potential here for the farmers.
Farmers say this is not only ideal because it's cleared, but because the soil is so rich and red and there are very little rocks here. They're going to start planting as soon as they can. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Junction Brook.
Last night, we brought you a documentary on the life and death of 18-year-old Hannah Thorne. Tonight, we're checking in with her mother, Gail, on what life has been like since the street racing crash that killed her child.
Now, her death is in the past, but the grief she feels remains ever present, and so does the push for change. Here now's Ryan Cook reports.
Hannah Thorne was 18, a new high school graduate. By now, most people in this province know her story. An innocent young woman caught in the wrong place, killed by two men in a drag race. Her mother wants everyone to know that 5 years later, it doesn't get any easier.
Hannah's friends, myself, we have all changed. I'll never be the person that I once was, you know. There were a lot of mental health issues with myself and my son, and a lot of her other friends had to seek professional help because of this. You know, it's not just our family, and it doesn't go away. I'm a lifetime. I will never get over this, never.
Not a day goes by that Gail Thorne doesn't think of this face, and the day she found out her baby was gone.
So when I heard Hannah's dead, how my body just went in shock. I couldn't even cry at first, you know. My body was just in shock, and really I just started to gag. I gagged and I cracked and I gagged for a long time after.
It didn't take long for Gail Thorne to realize there were gaping holes in the province's highway legislation. On the morning after the crash, there was nothing legally stopping Brian King or Stephen Mercer from getting behind the wheel of a car. No automatic suspensions. A new documentary follows Hannah's family and friends as they push to strengthen Newfoundland and Labrador's driving laws. But the message has not reached everyone.
This still continues after all of the education out there and all of the accidents or crashes that have happened. People still drive 178, 181 kilometers on the highway. So we have had a second meeting with the minister in charge of Services NL, and I'm hoping to stiffen all of that over again, actually.
Both King and Mercer were sentenced to federal jail terms. King pleaded guilty about 18 months after the crash and has now done his sentence. Mercer took the case to trial and is now on parole. Gail Thorne doesn't plan on letting go of the anger she feels towards either man anytime soon.
I am a forgiving person, but somebody that deliberately puts people through that and don't own up for their part in that, how can you forgive somebody for that? Nah.
Thorne hopes the documentary will find a permanent home in driving schools. They've already had Safety NL added to its curriculum. The constant push for change keeps Hannah Thorne alive in some ways, and that's the only thing that brings comfort to this grieving mom.
One thing that I've noticed when you do interviews in the documentary as well, you always refer to yourself as Hannah's mother in the present tense, never.
It's very hard to speak about her with a was. I heard my husband, somebody was speaking to my husband about Hannah, and he said, yeah, that was my daughter. It's like, whoa, that really hit me. Was your daughter? No, she is still your daughter. I'm still her mother. I still love her like she was still here. You know, my love still is growing for her, even though she's not here physically.
Ryan Cook, CBC News, New Harbour.
The RNC's mounted unit has a new home. The massive horses have been relocated to Rainbow Riders in St. John's, giving the animals a bit more space during the winter months. But the barn will also be used for another purpose as part of a PTSD therapy program to help military, first responders, and their families.
Chief Boland and the team from the RNC mounted unit, welcome to your new home.
As you know, Rainbow Riders was built for kids with disabilities, and not only physical disabilities, but cognitive, social. And we work every day using the horses as the healers for those kids. And now being able to apply that programming and work with the RNC and their programming for our frontline responders is, I mean, it's just incredible.
Idea first was strictly about the wellness of the horses, and then we looked at the opportunities to be able to expand our therapy program throughout the year. So when you have an indoor arena such as this, you can walk over less than 100 yards and you can get out of the weather conditions. You know, it's no secret that, you know, you're in St. John's, you have hilly streets that are very narrow, and you get into winter time to put a 2,000 plus pound animal out in those conditions, you know, you're jeopardizing the safety of the animal and the rider, or even persons in vehicles.
You bring water to a horse, you can't make him drink it, eh?
6 years ago, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and as a result, I ended up off work for 18 months. I was finished. I was ready to leave it all behind and walk away, but the universe had a different plan. The Heroes Equine Learning Program, or HELP for short, is actually a charity based out of Ottawa originally, and I met with the developers in Ottawa, and essentially we were able to bring that program here to Newfoundland. These retreats are for first responders and military personnel dealing with operational stress injuries and PTSD. I think it's huge. I think that there's a great need. I think that horses can provide such a calm and comforting feeling to a lot of people, especially our horses, where they're so big and they're so beautiful and they're majestic, and I really feel that they have a lot to offer. So the program overall is just wonderful.
All the solutions that are put on the table from every group need to be read with an open mind, whether that's privatization or not.
Or tax reform,
Right?
also
Yeah.
on the table. Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, you know what? It's going to be all of the above, right?
A healthy debate about a fiscal and economic overhaul as the province awaits the release of the Green Report. That's coming up. Time for a look at the weather, and it was a pretty nice day today. I popped out in the afternoon. There was this downpour, more rain, but it was kind of nice because there wasn't any wind. It was just that mild, straight rain.
Yeah, the nice one.
Yeah.
The nice type of rain. Yeah, but then the sun popped out at some point this afternoon here in St. John's. We saw the temperature jump up as well, which was kind of nice. Let's take a look at the daytime highs across the province, into the double digits for most of us, if not pretty close. 9 degrees in Gander and 8 in St. Anthony. And then we've got a temperature this afternoon at about 4 degrees for Lab City. That's where you're sitting now. The temperatures are now into the single digits across most of the island, and they're going to drop as we head through the overnight tonight with an area of low pressure dominating the weather right now. So we are seeing some showers, but also some clearing breaks, like I said, for eastern areas of the island. That will generally continue as we head through the overnight tonight. The southwestern portion of the island will actually see some clearing, and most of us will see partly to mostly cloudy skies with the chance of some flurries, graupel, or showers continuing through central as well as the northern peninsula. And then pretty much a similar story up across Labrador as well. Not a whole lot on the go. I'm not seeing too much in the way of accumulation. Tomorrow anyway, we may see some accumulation down through the southern portion, southeastern portion of the Big Land, but that's about it as far as the weather goes. So for tonight, temperatures will be dipping somewhere between 1 to 2 degrees across the board. Lower lying areas may see temperatures dip just below zero, and the winds will generally ease. They're going to stay a little bit breezy in the east, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour out of the southwest tonight. Across Labrador, 0 degrees for Lab City. Winds will be generally northwesterlies, about 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. And then we're looking at either showers or flurries for central northern Labrador. Mid-coast around Cartwright, you may see some clearing skies tonight as well, helping the temperature dip to about -3 overnight tonight. As far as tomorrow goes, that area of low pressure, at least the center of it's going to head towards the northern peninsula as well as southeastern Labrador. So it means we could see some clearing skies, more than likely for the southern portion of the island as well as towards eastern areas as well. But the afternoon will still stay unsettled. We're still looking at the potential for some afternoon showers. And then across Labrador, or at least the southeastern portion, the potential for snow will change over to rain as those temperatures dump up into the afternoon. And as far as the western portion of Labrador, just some flurries, the story for you. Same thing for the north. You may see some showers in the mix through the afternoon. Temperatures tomorrow should sit somewhere between 7 to 9 degrees. The winds will be breezy to start, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Then they should ease as the day goes on. As we head towards Clarenville, reaching the double digits, Bonavista about 8 degrees tomorrow with some sunshine. The further we get towards central, the warmer the temperatures, 10 to 12 degrees. Even Harbour Breton should see a high near 9 tomorrow. Twillingate looking at a high near 7. And then as we head towards the west coast, temperatures sitting about 8 to 10 degrees, maybe in those higher elevations again. We could see the potential for a few flurries or some graupel in the mix. Winds will be generally about 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. Some sunshine for the southwest. Northern peninsula, a little bit cooler. There's that snow I was talking about for southeastern portion of Labrador. 4 degrees for Mary's Harbour. Cartwright at 3. And again, you could see some rain in the mix for you. As we head towards central Labrador, you're looking at Happy Valley Goose Bay, about 6 degrees, either rain or showers or flurries through the day. And then again, those flurries possible for Lab West. Winds not too bad, about 15 to 40 kilometers per hour across the board. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. As we head towards the weekend, things are going to start to warm up. We're going to start seeing more double digits in the forecast, but I'll get into those details coming up.
As you saw in Heather Gillis's report a bit earlier, a lot of concern here in Newfoundland and Labrador for what's happening in India. Dr. Pushpa Sathya has been living here in St. John's for more than 10 years. So doctor, as a person who was born in India, how are you feeling looking at what's going on in the country of your birth?
It's really heartbreaking to see what the situation is in India. If I had to describe it in one word, it would be disastrous. Really, it is unbelievable and unimaginable what they're going through right now. My heart goes out to them.
And in your case, between you and your husband, do you have many family members back in India?
Yes, we do have many family members back in India. Some of them have been COVID positive, and in the first wave, a couple of them passed away from COVID. And recently, a very close relative also passed away. We think likely from a heart attack, but he was found to be COVID positive after. So we don't know whether it was a contributing factor or not, but he was asymptomatic. And there's another family member who's quite sick at the moment, and they think he may have COVID. The problem is he lives in a village, and there's no testing facility available for him.
Is there much you can do other than just watch from afar? I mean, how do you provide comfort or support to your loved ones?
I mean, how do you provide comfort? Calling them frequently, keeping in touch with them, making sure that they have the necessary supports available locally is really all you can do, other than providing some financial help or any other help that we are able to provide. Canada has recently announced that they will be sending some monetary support, and hopefully some other forms of support is coming. And I'm hoping that Canadians will step up and also contribute to make it a larger donation. I think the problem in India currently is a dire situation, in my opinion, because they are running out of supplies, including basic things like oxygen. People are dying for lack of oxygen, and that's a heartbreaking sight to watch. Medications are running out. They're being turned away from hospitals because they don't have beds, ICU beds, ventilators, oxygen, and medications to treat them. So a lot of people are dying at home.
There's also an almost dark irony, isn't there, that India is such a world-leading producer of vaccines? I mean, how could this be happening?
I know. India has a very large serum institute that does make COVAX, and it has in fact sent a lot of vaccines to other countries where there was a need. But currently they have recognized with the second wave that they don't have enough raw materials and supplies to ramp up the production of more vaccines. So it's a really difficult situation that they're in. So I would hope that the other countries and the World Health Organization and other countries like the US, which has a surplus of vaccine, would consider sending some to India at the moment, because they're not in a position to produce more rapidly.
Given some of the poverty in India and population density, I mean, this is really ripping through the country, almost like a forest fire.
Yeah.
What has to happen for India to get the upper hand on this?
After the first wave, the health minister and the public health officials, I think, let down their guard, and the politicians only allowed a lot of mass gatherings to occur and political campaigns without any restrictions or public health measures or protocol in place. The other problem is contact tracing. Once you identify that somebody is positive, they have to isolate, but they also have to make sure that they trace any other contacts. Apparently, the big new thing that I heard is that people are turning off their cell phones because they know that there is no help available even if they go to hospital. So they don't want to be identified, and they're turning off their cell phones. So contact tracing is a challenge. And although India is reporting some 325,000 people a day being COVID positive, I think it's at least 5 to 10-fold more than that. There are mass graves, there are mass cremations happening. It's really a heartbreaking sight to watch and hear about. Yeah.
Dr. Sathya, thank you for your thoughts and your insight, and all the best to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks.
When you enter New Brunswick, they track your license plate until you exit. And if you don't exit, I guess they're sending drones.
Sean Majumder tries to make his way home, but gets turned around at the New Brunswick border.
Stay with us. His story is coming up in about 20 minutes. There is a lot of anticipation around the release of the Green Report from the province's economic recovery team led by Moya Green. The report is supposed to help government decide which structural changes are needed to get the province's finances back on track. Well, tonight we're looking at the province's fiscal problems and debating some of the possible solutions. Joining me now is MUN economic professor Wade Locke. So let's start with the debt. $16.4 billion, not including borrowing for the Lower Churchill project. How can the province even begin to tackle that debt?
If you were to try to pay off $16.4 billion, which is people would normally use, with running a surplus, you'd have to run a surplus in the range of $600 to $650 million every year for the next 50 years, if the interest rate were 3%, for example.
So for the province to pay off its debt, it would have to run a surplus every year for 50 years?
To put that in perspective for you, we would need to bring our healthcare expenditures down to the Canadian average. We could increase personal income taxes by 10%. That would give us about $150 million and 2% on HST. So there are ways of managing this stuff here, but it's a serious problem.
And servicing that debt is also a serious problem. That's our biggest expense after healthcare. So how can we manage that better?
Well, I think what has to happen, like in order for us to move forward, we're going to have to borrow somewhere close to $12 billion in the next 10 years just to pay off the loans that we've already borrowed, right? So we do have a budget constraint, and having the cell phone number for the Prime Minister of Canada is not sufficient. It's not just simply a political problem, it's an economic problem that we have to deal with. And so what has to happen is that we need to think about, okay, we need to run a surplus. How much of a surplus do we need? Okay, how are we going to generate the surplus? There's lots of ways to do that. One is you can raise taxes, you can raise rates. It's difficult to do in an environment where we have high rates already. We can try to grow the economy, but that's difficult as well. We don't get a lot out of that. We can try to be more efficient, but we've already cut where we can cut. And the other thing we can do is lower expenditure. So some combination of all of those things would be required. And it's not simply a matter of political will. It's a matter of trying to live within a reasonable part of our means. And so it's not a matter of running a balanced budget. It's a matter of running a surplus for a period of time in order to get the problem manageable.
And the last time the province had a true surplus was a decade ago when the oil prices were booming. So how do we get back to the black now?
Right now, Newfoundland's healthcare expenditure on a per capita basis, if we were to project that to the total population, we could save $620 million, I think, in healthcare expenditures if we could just lower our expenditures down to the Canadian average, right? So there are lots of things we can think about doing, but all of the things involve, in one form or another, a reduction in the number of people working for government, working for university, working for hospitals. We have 50% of all government expenditures tied in some form or another to wages, salaries, compensation, pension funds, post-retirement benefits, all kinds of things. But it requires a downsizing of some type or another. Now, not immediately, and we can do that over a period of time. But we do need to start, and we do need to have a focus and a real plan and a real vision for how do we get there. And pretending that we can simply grow our way out of this is illusionary, especially given what's going on currently with the oil and gas sector and climate change.
Okay, some tough realities and decisions ahead. Wade Locke, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Let's bring in some more opinions from other sectors. Elise Stewart is a community organizer for Common Front, which is a coalition of labor, social, and justice groups. And Justin Latta is the chair of the St. John's Board of Trade. So let's start with what Wade Locke had to say there. It would take 50 years of budget surpluses to pay off our $16.4 billion debt. So that offers us some perspective on the size of the problem. Elise Stewart, what did you make of it?
I don't think anybody can look at those numbers and not feel really afraid and not feel like we're entering into yet again another really tough cycle of this province's finances. Our provincial deficit is something that is impacting everyone's life in one way or another. So we need to be thinking about how do we make sure that those impacts are lessened? What does the next 50 years look like? And how do we ensure that the decisions that we're making today don't have the same long-term negative impact on the next generation of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians?
Justin Latta, if you were writing the Green Report, what would be your main focus?
I think the first thing that I'd want to do is try to find a way to reduce that annual debt service cost. Our debt is at a position where we can't manage it. And then look towards reducing that annual deficit via efficiencies. And at the same time, work really hard to attract outside investment so that we can get immigration rolling. So they're the key areas in a nutshell where I'd focus.
Yeah, Carolyn, I mean, I think that the focus of any report that is for the people of this province needs to focus on the people of this province. So my first, line would probably be, there is no economy without workers. There is no comeback without workers, and how do we make sure that we're bringing more people into the workforce? How do we make sure we're looking at these bigger structural problems and recognizing that, we have a huge poverty issue in this province. We have issues with making sure that women are able to be represented in the economy and marginalized folks. So there's a lot of people that we're leaving behind. So how do we actually make a province that works for the most people?
I think overall we need to be open-minded because right now the current situation that we're in is no good for anybody, including all the groups that Elise mentioned. It puts us all at risk. It is putting us all at risk. I mean, that's a fact. So we need to make changes. And if we go through some of the steps, I believe that I just said, that will be good for everybody in the province, because then we'll have more power to invest to reduce poverty, more power to invest to provide maybe amplified services in the future in different ways, or invest in industries. Right now, we're hamstrung.
Moya Green has a reputation for being pro-privatization, so that's led to some speculation the Green Report could go down the road of suggesting a reduction in the size of government and maybe even privatizing government services like hydro or institutions like MUN. Elise Stewart, what do you think of that possibility?
I mean, I think everybody should be really concerned about what comes out in that report. And certainly the Premier has assured us that it is not written in stone, that it is just to offer insight. But her track record does speak for itself. You don't need to look very far down her resume to see the impact that she's had on a lot of public services. So we are rightfully afraid, but it's important to remember that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, they make their voices heard. If we remember the budget that Dwight Ball passed in 2015, 2016, 3,000 people marched on Confederation Building because they wanted to ensure that public services were protected. And I think, Justin, I can certainly agree about the revenue piece is huge, and measures need to be taken. I think we need to look at our tax structure. How does our corporate income tax fare with even the Atlantic averages? We're still below that. So those are some measures that can be taken. And again, we are singing from the same songbook about immigration and keeping people in this province. We don't have a tax structure big enough to currently sustain this deficit. So we need to bring people to this province. And I'll say that if you're trying to bring people here, you're trying to stop out migration, cutting public sector services and cutting those good paying, steady, permanent, pensionable jobs, it's not a way to do that. And it's not a way to grow your economy.
I think we're going to need a mix. I like to think we will need a level of federal investment, I like to call it, because we have a lot to offer. We will have to be very targeted in our taxation because, to attract that outside investment, you still must be competitive. Everybody has to be open-minded to changes. And if that involves unpopular things like maybe selling parts of our assets or some element of privatization, there's good ways to do that. There's bad ways to do that. You can find examples of both all around the world. And I don't think people should just be saying no, because we're not in a position where we can be closed-minded.
think too, when we look at some of those solutions, Justin, like P3s have been proven in Ontario recently, especially, that they have more long-term costs. So when we're already looking at such a huge fiscal issue, I think we need to be also very, very hesitant about what we're willing to give up now. We need to be looking forward to how do we keep people in this province, and not maybe just taking the first offer because it's all that we can get right now. So, there's been a lot of research on the dangers of privatization and P3. So that's a big concern too.
Yeah, no, I mean, the debate is important and the quick debate is important. And at the end of the day, there may be a compromise. But one thing's for sure, the status quo is not acceptable. Something must change. So I think all the solutions that are put on the table from every group need to be read with an open mind, whether that's privatization or not. And then maybe
or tax reform also on the table. Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, you know what? It's going to be all of the above, right? It's going to be all of the above. It's not going to be one thing in isolation, and everybody's not going to agree, nor should they. But we have a recent track record of not implementing a lot of changes. And what's happening is we're going deeper and deeper in debt. And every year, a percentage of the revenue the government takes in, that the percentage of that goes to paying off our debt, just interest actually, is increasing and increasing. That's not sustainable. And we want to be able to control how we fix this on our terms. So it's good for the people of the province. We don't want somebody else doing that. So we can't allow the status quo to continue. But the debate is important.
Well, you both offer some very interesting perspectives. Elise Stewart and Justin Lotta, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, I forgot my mask.
We know you have a lot to remember these days. But please remember that you need a mask in public spaces.
Forgot my mask.
Forgot my mask.
I forgot my mask. Forgot my mask.
Don't forget your mask. And if you see someone who did, don't forget to look all judgy, but with your eyes.
Millie?
Some creative solutions there from our friends at 22 Minutes.
I'll bet you, Karen, the sales of turtlenex have gone up over the last year or so.
For sure. Well, in Atlantic Canada, many residents are being told to stay put, but some people are on the road trying to return to their home province.
Restrictions at different provincial boundaries vary, and Sean Majumder's journey home hit a snag in New Brunswick. Here he is describing what happened to the CBC's Harry Forrestal.
I knew there was going to be some extra restrictions because actually something that you had tweeted, and I reached out to you and I said, hey, Harry, what's the deal with this new, mandatory lockdown, et cetera? And so as per your instructions, I went to a link that you had sent me to register to enter New Brunswick. So I registered myself and my wife and my kid and all of that. And then I got there. And and I entered myself as a drive-through because that's what I'm doing. I'm driving through. So we're going to drive through New Brunswick and we're going to the ferry. And but drive-through, I didn't know literally meant you cannot stop in New Brunswick. And I said, well, what about when we get to Nova Scotia? He said, do you have your registration number for Nova Scotia? I said, no, I was going to do that tonight in Fredericton. He goes, well, you can't do that because you can't stay. And I said, why? What's the need? Like, is it the same there? Because I'm going on a ferry. How am I going to, you're not allowed to stay in Nova Scotia too? I'm kind of stuck. But what it was is they track your license plate. When you enter when you enter New Brunswick, they track your license plate until you exit. And if you don't exit, I guess they're sending drones. I mean, it feels really, I've never been a tourist in North Korea, but I'm getting a little bit of that feeling with New Brunswick, of all places.
What was the attitude at the border in New Brunswick? Were they understanding?
The guy was very, he's just doing his job. So even when I started pressing him on some of the questions about the website and the confusion, he goes, after a while, I just saw him kind of break down. He's like, oh, yeah, you're not the only person who's frustrated right now. We've been telling the government, or we've been sending notes to everybody saying, please fix this problem because they're not getting the information that they need in order to plan their trip. That's the problem is like, if you know clearly you're not allowed to overnight in New Brunswick, you're driving, you could be even driving from Ontario and you get to New Brunswick and then they're like, nope, you got to keep going. And then, it's really challenging. So, and it only just happened, Saturday. So in terms of the extreme lockdown.
Good luck with the journey, Sean. I hope it goes well.
Just remember, everybody, if you're driving through New Brunswick, you can't stay. Mark that down.
Well, there you go. A public service announcement there from Sean Majumder.
All right, Burlington awaits. Hope he makes it home safe. Other news now, studies indicate that getting vaccinated significantly reduces your risk of being infected, but a new study out of the UK by Public Health England says just one dose can even cut household transmission in half. Now, that's encouraging news for so-called hotspots in the country.
Up to now, we've known that vaccination will protect you as the individual, but now we're also getting evidence that getting vaccinated will protect others around you. And this will drive down that effective reproductive number, that RT number that we always worry about, because we're trying to get that number below 1 in order to eventually get out of this pandemic.
Now, the study says similar results can be expected in other shared accommodations, includes prisons. Participants took one dose of either the Pfizer or the AstraZeneca vaccine, and results were similar across all age groups.
back with a look at the long range. So how are things looking? Any more rain in the forecast?
Yes, if we get to Friday, we're going to see a little bit more rain move in. That's our next area of low pressure moves in. Let's take a look at the future tracker to time that out for you. You can see that move in late day Friday, the first half of Friday. We may see some sunshine in the mix, but we'll certainly see some rain as we head into the evening hours for most of the island. And there you can see some of that snow, the blue there, making its way into the forecast. And there is a risk that we could see some snow through the evening hours in the first half of Saturday, mainly for the west coast as well as southeastern portions of Labrador. The rest of the island should stay as rain through the afternoon on Friday, and even into Saturday we may see some more periods of rain later on in the day for eastern areas of the island as that area of low pressure continues to affect us. And then across Labrador, we're looking at the potential for some snow and or rain in the forecast as well. So it will be unsettled weekend for the most part. As we get into the rest of the weekend, things will start to quiet down. But overall, as we get there, we're going to see temperatures in the double digits, about 10 to 12 degrees, cooler for the southwest. It's looking like temperatures should only reach the single digits, maybe a degree or two more than that. And then Labrador looking at 2 to 5 degrees as your afternoon highs on Friday. Same thing for the northern peninsula, putting a little bit more sunshine in the forecast for you to start the day. As we get into Saturday, right now keeping things sunny for St. John's, and that's because the models are disagreeing a little bit, but at this point going to keep that sun in there. We may see some showers early on or later on in the evening hours. And then again, that rain or snow, like I said, for pretty much the west coast as well as the northern peninsula. And then as you head further west and north, that should be just flurries for you. Looking at the next couple of days, lots of double digits in the forecast. By Sunday, we're looking at temperature around 9 degrees with some showers, but also keeping that sun icon in there. Not thinking it's going to be completely gray. More than likely see some peaks of sun. Monday looks lovely, 12 degrees and sunshine. As we head towards central Newfoundland, you're looking at a similar warm up as we get into Monday with some sunshine to start the work week. And then as far as the western portion of the island goes, some flurries in the mix for Saturday and Sunday, like I mentioned, and then Monday looking at double digits and sunshine. For eastern Labrador, same thing, temperatures a little bit cooler for you. And then in the west, you're looking at sunshine to start the day on Sunday, and then by Monday, you'll be hovering around the 5-degree mark. I wanted to share this photo, a lovely sunrise in Conception Harbor this morning. Saw a beautiful sunset last night as well. Beverly shared that one with us. And if you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful shot there, Beverly. Thank you very much.
I'm liking that forecast for Saturday. I'm already looking forward to that. I hope that holds.
Hope that holds.
Yeah, for sure. 13 and sunny. Cool.
Yep, I'll take it.
Back in the garden for you too.
Yes, for sure.
Definitely.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for spending part of your evening with us.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.